Welcome to the Friday Future of Finance Lab. Lance Rubin provides financial modeling with Excel, data analytics with Power BI, and AI tools.
So welcome everyone. This is the Friday's Future of Finance Lab. We're doing this every fortnight, and we're going to bring you, what does it mean to be the AI-powered accountant? Our sessions are going to obviously welcome new people that have come in. There'll be people that will flow in and out of these sessions from fortnight to fortnight. Quick introduction, and we'll just give a quick outline of what we're going to cover. And the focus for today, we're going to do some community solving, problem solving. I don't think we're going to have time for that today. We definitely have time for our guest speaker, but I guess we are going to have the ability within the hour, assuming there's time, to solve some community challenges. So people can raise those, bring them, and see how they go. A wrap up and a preview for what's next. And then of course there's optional training, and there's some survey feedback towards the end, including if you want, corporate training or programs and that, we can definitely, just reach out to us on that. Couple of house rules. So first up, please add into the chat comments, name, maybe your LinkedIn profile. What do you do? If you can put that into the chat, that would be really useful. I guess, we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to connect with each other. And, this is very much about community and about getting to learn and grow with each other through this process. Ideally, cameras are on. Express emojis in the chat. So thumbs up, thumbs down, we'll ask a few questions. We're not going to run polls this time around, but in other cases we will. And, we obviously are using, there's the Zoom, maybe the Zoom note taker doesn't like my read AI note taker, but anyway, we are going to have that summarized so that everyone will have notes. And obviously if the session's recorded, it's going to be published as well online. So you're not going to lose out. So the AI-powered accountant, recently I was on a podcast to actually define that. I like to think about what does the future of finance mean, and how do we think about that. I always like to apply the hack, which is a concept that I've created: hygiene, automation, capability, and knowledge. So if you want finance to really leverage this, you've really got to get your hygiene right. Then you can start looking at automation and then building capability and knowledge along the way at the same time. So if we look, what does that actually mean? Well, what we mean is, yes, Excel is still around and Excel will be needed, because when AI gets things wrong, who's going to rescue the day? It's you with your AI, with your Excel skills. And I'm going to actually run some really practical examples, and you're going to see me, the way I would approach it. The AI is going to do it, and we're going to do a cross-check on accuracy. And it's not always perfect, and it does get things wrong. So what does that actually mean? Does it mean we just throw everything out? No, it means that we actually got to think about the process and the data, which of course is part of step 2. Then we need to have the ability to assess this tech, because this tech's going to be everywhere. And so how do we have that assessment? Cover some AI concepts, and then, those first 4 are really technical skills in this new brave world we're heading into. But we have to think about the softer skills, which we often don't talk about: the growth mindset, and then the human skills, the human relationships, the storytelling. In these fortnights, we're going to cover each one of these. Today is just about giving you an overview of all of these different elements, but we're going to go through each of these components. Excel fluency is so important, as I said, because when all else fails, you need your Excel. The process and the data is really around the data mindset, understanding your pipelines, understanding your automation through that process, like Power Query. Are you using dynamic arrays? Are you using automation tools inside Excel? How do you assess technology across all these different apps? Because it's really important. How do you understand fundamentals of AI? What is hallucination? What are tokens? What are the guardrails? What are the security? These are important concepts that as an accountant, as a finance professional, we have to understand. If you're going to use AI, we have to understand its good and bad, right? And we're going to hear from Andrew, the co-founder of TabAI, shortly about some of these elements as well. Growth mindset, failed workflows is a learning curve, right? Something that goes wrong is actually an opportunity to learn as opposed to failure. And then human skills: empathy, storytelling, influencing. At a high level, it's going to run through each of those 6. So Excel fluency, what do we mean? Excel fluency, we're talking about financial modeling. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, and 4-way modeling, scenario analysis, simulation, sensitivities, modern Excel, Power Query, dynamic arrays, LAMBDAs. And what are the foundations? The foundations of formula construction, shortcuts, VBA. Now you can actually use VBA with AI if you're using Anthropic, for example, to write your VBA scripts, and you can test it and do it. Other basic things like goal seek and data validations is important. And then automation with AI as well. Avoiding copying and pasting is kind of the first thing that I'd say. is a huge automation benefit. And no more manual slicing and dicing and pivot tables. You can actually build some of that in. And then best practices. What does best practices mean? And we're going to always like to use the acronym FAST, although I don't apply the FAST rules in a way. I kind of more the principles: flexible, appropriate, structured, and transparent. And we'll cover that. For the process and data phase, we're talking about diagnose, scope, build, and implement in terms of a data approach to business. For the data journey, we're going to talk about sourcing, transformation, data model, and visualization. I am going a bit fast in these things because I actually want to get to the practical side, because I think obviously theory is important, but I did a lot of research on what everyone's questions and answers were to when they joined, to really see what exactly people want to get out of the session. Process and data, I was on the 2022 Power BI Summit. These are 8 steps to building your first Power BI report. We're going to do that as well as part of these 4. Not today, of course, we're not going to cover all of that, but we are going to do it as part of those fortnightly 1-hour sessions. Assessing technology, again, I don't want to read the slide, I want to run through it. These are elements of how do you assess technology: understanding total cost of ownership, integration, scalability, flexibility. I mean, Excel is beautiful because it's so flexible, right? But it's not always that scalable. So how do you get something that does both? It's scalable to a point, but then sometimes it runs out of puff depending on what you're trying to do. User adoption and learning curves, data security and compliance, always important when it comes to AI. And of course, vendor stability and support is important. I always like to come back to the 3 pillars in the finance tech stack. So we've got the automation stack, the analytics stack, and the financial modeling stack. Now, they might be related, but they are ultimately different skills, different tools. And, in the automation stack, they all come in different shapes and sizes, whether it's RPA or VBA or Python or AI now. Analytics, clearly you have your 4 key pillars: diagnostic, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. And then financial modeling, it's a little small robot, because I don't think that AI at this point in time can build a full 3-way model. So we can talk a little bit about that. I think you can do many other things in the finance processes, but I've yet to see an AI model build and nail a 3-way balanced model in Excel on desktop yet. So there's a lot of noise about it, but and then there's reasons why that is the case. And Andrew and I have had lots of robust conversations about that challenge, and ultimately, we're going to cover that. I think we'll get there, but we're certainly not there at the moment. AI fundamentals, AI, LLMs, tokens, hallucinations, data privacy, practical application. We're going to cover all of that in the 4th part of the 6 pillars. Growth mindset, we're going to cover all those key elements. Shifting your perspective, overcoming those mental barriers is important. One of the big things that I think people are challenged with is, am I too old? I don't have the time. I'm so busy with month end, I don't have the time to focus on this. What if it makes mistakes? So I think there's a lot of people that are sitting on the fence with AI because we know it makes mistakes. And there's this concept of vibe, right? If you've heard it, it's quite scary. It's like the vibe of AI, vibe coding. In fact, someone actually recently mentioned vibe CFO. And if I had to go and say, because I'm a fractional CFO, I have a bunch of clients I do work for. If I said, oh, well, the vibe of these numbers is that they're trending upwards, it'd be terrible, right? It's binary. It's either right or it's wrong. However, financial models have degrees of accuracy as well. So it's not like we don't know how to deal with gray, but there's certain fundamental things that we have to be comfortable with. And how do we validate that AI is doing the right thing? And we're going to do a practical example now on that. What if the company's not ready? Certain companies are just anti, and they're not going to have it because they don't have the AI stack inside their world. So, with an on-premise deployment. And if you want to run AI internally, that's fine. Of course, you're talking massive cost to do that. My key thing is, will AI expose my gaps, right? Will it actually show that, we don't have the right skills, the processes? And that's an important part of the growth mindset of shifting those barriers of how we can actually embrace and get people to explore this. 70-20-10 learning model, always important. We're going to employ that here as well, by doing, by watching, and then by reading or researching. So we're going to give you all the workbooks in terms of the questions, and then it's for you to go away and build those. And, the answers to all of those models can be purchased, but ultimately people need to do the work to learn. Build a habit of like shortcut keys. You don't learn the shortcut keys by memorizing them. You learn the shortcut keys by actually doing it. And then what does that mean for career transformation? What are we going to do? Already I've had conversations with people on this call around, it's now becoming a requirement when you're being hired to actually understand AI. And so what does that mean in AI transformation? This is what you're going to get from coming to these training sessions at the end. Not only will you be able to talk, but you'll be able to show and demonstrate, and that's important. Now, the big topic that we often avoid is the human side, right? And I'm not talking about growth mindset. I'm talking about all these other skills that we need to develop, because if we get to a situation where AI is doing all this work for us, what are we going to do? We need to build skills that AI can't replace. Judgment, empathy, intuition, creativity, relationships. I think, people can argue that creativity, where AI can do creativity. Yes, some image generation and poetry and jokes and all that sort of stuff. Probably one thing that shocked most of us is its ability to do that. Can you actually build empathy and trust? And how trusting are people of other AI versus another human? I think that trust element is key. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. Imagine walking into a boardroom saying, this is the report, these are the results, this is our forecast. You get the question and they say, okay, how did you get that? And they basically say, well, the AI told me. You're not reading the room. You need to be able to have those skills. AI can prepare the data, but you need the EQ to deliver the insights and drive the action. You're not going to get people to adopt your numbers if it's 100% driven by AI and you actually can't explain it. And that's the challenge, because AI is a black box to some degree, because it doesn't give you all of its logic. You sometimes don't even know how it came up with the numbers. And we're actually going to show you that. I'm going to show you that it got it right, but you just don't know how. Collaboration and adaptability, a T-shaped professional, so deep expertise in certain things, but also broad skills will make you indispensable. So these are the human skills we need to develop, not just finance and accounting. Now it's data, now it's AI, it's financial modeling. When you start to have that broader skill set, you become indispensable. And that's critical, because that's how you can guide yourself against these verticals, which we get stuck in. Like if all I've done is financial control and I've done management reporting, well, AI is going to take a size, not all of it, but a sizable portion of that work. Very deep expertise. You've got to be more horizontal. And then critical thinking and ethics. Professional skepticism is irreplaceable. Question the source, challenge. I always challenge the prompt in the AI when it comes back to me with something. How do I know it's right? It needs to prove it to me. And that's important. I haven't been watching the chat. I've seen there's quite a few banter. If you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them on, Andrew. And I've got members of my team in Model Citizen on the call as well. So if there is anything, Andrew or Alex or Maddie or Kerry, please just shout out if there's any questions that are popping up. Community interactions. I'm not an expert. I'm not an AI expert. I consider myself a financial modeling expert. I consider myself a reasonably proficient data expert, but I'm not an AI expert. And so I'm learning just like everyone else. Now, one of the things that I do is I do a lot in the tech space. I do a lot in the tech space relating to financial modeling. I always have. I've played with a number of different add-ins. We're going to talk about some add-in tech, but this is a community. And the way that we grow this and people get the value out of it is we invite certain guest speakers like we are today with Andrew and a few others. If you want to become a guest speaker and come and talk on this, that's great. Just reach out to me and I'm more than happy for you to share your thoughts. If you're running an AI project or you need to, or you want to explore that, icebreaker questions. We've got a great icebreaker question today, which Andrew's going to share. Deep dive problems if there's time, so people can bring, obviously we've got recording on at the moment, so you probably don't want to share your dirty laundry while there's recording, but we can turn that off and then we can sort of explore that as well. Future topics, there's a survey at the end. Please complete the survey. I want to know, am I hitting the right mark? Is the pace too fast, too slow, new topics, all these sort of things? That's an important part of this process. And then growing the community, invite colleagues and others. We had 114 people register for this. Generally, it's about a 50% turnout rate. And we know that they've got quite a wide distribution of people around the world. Most of the people are, of course, from Australia and then Sri Lanka as well. But, there's obviously areas that weren't able to make it. But, there's no, apart from, 100 cap, because I don't want to get too big, but definitely we might even open it up and make it unlimited to see how we go. this is not a webinar, it's an interactive session. So that's why we want to have it really useful for people. People can connect, they can, share their profiles. Cool. That was a lot. That was quite fast. I was keen to get through that at least in sort of 15 minutes. I'm on the mark. Andrew, welcome. You're going to take us through, give us a bit of background. You're the co-founder of TabAI, which you and I've had lots of interactions lately. This is your slide, and yeah, just feel free to open up and share with the rest of the.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you, Lance. That was a very speedy intro. But I learned a lot. That was a very quick deep dive on like the whole industry of like how AI is like assisting, I guess finance and accountants. So I am the co-founder of TabAI. I was previously a researcher at Columbia. I did physics at Columbia University. I graduated and I did like high frequency trading for a bit, and AI research. And then my co-founder spent like 5 years in like Ernst and Young, right? And like did IB for a bit. So she was like, in it. She was like in it for like 14 hours a day, just dealing with like Excel and like a lot of financial modeling. And then like this year, she was like, wait, why isn't there like a good functioning AI inside Excel? She tried Copilot and she was super excited, right? The ad was like the best ad ever. Like the keyboards would literally flip and the cells would like, hover and everything. It was like one of those gorgeous ads. But when she tried it, she was like marginally disappointed. I think it was early AI days. I think it has improved since then. But then she was like, hey, why not we just join up and build this Tab AI, which I think Lance will demo later. So that's what we did. Right now we are going through like a few pilot motions with like Fortune 500 companies, accounting firms. There's a lot of interest from like people like yourself and also like people from like advisory and commercial banking and stuff. Also like private credit. So we're just very excited to learn about all the different ways where Excel is used. I'm still bizarre and like surprised by the fact daily that Excel has like 1.2 billion monthly active user. So like 1 out of 6 people in the world uses Excel every month. It's just bizarre. So happy to just build things for like you all. Like today I just jumped off a call and someone was like, oh, I tried to convert a PDF, like a cash flow statement into like Excel. I tried ChatGPT, I tried Perplexity, I tried everything, nothing works. I dragged and dropped into Tab AI and then it just works. And like it's pretty cool. And I don't know, that just makes my day. It's like all the hard work and all the sweat just makes people's lives like better. So yeah, happy to answer anything.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Good, bad, and ugly. Your experience AI for finance, kind of so far, because obviously we've had a few examples of those, and yeah, maybe you want to share, particularly around some of the challenges I think that are around when it comes to AI.
Yeah. So the good is that it's real, right? Like there are times where it really saves a lot of time. So for an example, reconciliation, right? That used to take so much time, right? That would take like a person a few hours a day. Now AI can just get it done. PDF to Excel, someone would literally sit there and copy paste it. It doesn't make sense. Now you can just drag and drop and then you can just get it done and you can go for tea. The bad is that
Andrew, just quickly on that. So Power Query, you can bring stuff into using Power Query with PDFs, right? And you have for some time. How is AI different to that?
I think it's just better user experience. Right now it's just list right inside your Excel, right? And then you can like ask for it, you can interact with it. It's like having an AI analyst right there with you, and then you can be more selective about it. Whereas Power Query is more like deterministic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to actually mention the tables. You got to open the file, and I guess your PDF would be image, even if it's an image and
Yeah.
it's not an actual table. But Power Query
Yep.
actually needs it to be a proper table. It can't be
Yep.
someone's taken a photo and converted a photo to a PDF. That won't work
Yep.
on Power Query, right? Because it doesn't have the
Yeah.
deterministic structure of a table in a PDF. Um,
Yeah. And can Power Query extract like charts as well, like all these things? Or is it just tables?
No, it's just tables. Pulls tables,
Yeah,
puts it into a
TabAI.
table, and then now you've got to go and build, pivot tables or pivot charts or other things or dynamic arrays with dynamic functions in tables in charts.
Yeah. And what I've heard from people from like private equity as well is that they would convert a lot of these data dumps into Excel, right? But if you use Power Query, it's just hard values. It's not formulas. Tab AI can help you turn it back into formulas so that it's actually traceable and linkable. Yeah. So that's the good part. A lot of time saved. The bad part is that there's a lot of hype. You go on LinkedIn, you go on Twitter, everyone's like, wow, look, AI is gonna replace human, right? We're all gonna be done. There's gonna be no more all jobs are going to be replaced. And that's not true. And AI is like not reliable. Like there's still a lot of times where it just works like half the time. And that's why human in the loop matters so much. And that's why we decided to like build it fully inside Excel. Like we didn't even bother building like a new spreadsheet app or like, put it inside Google Sheets. We know that people live inside Excel desktop, not even Excel online. So we just fully focus on like our fellow finance and accountants, which are like where our background is from. And so that's the thing. I think there's a lot of hype. And that's why being inside Excel matters a lot so that people can actually trace and check and verify whether the results are good. Um, I think what I'm very excited about, and I'm not sure if this is ugly, is that the pace is insane. The pace of AI progression is insane. Like when we built it out a few months ago, we built out this evaluation set, right? So in AI, what you do is like you build out this ginormous data set of like evaluation so that as you change the prompt and as you change like the different tools that this agent has, right, you can evaluate. It's like an exam for AI. It's like, oh, as I change the prompt, does it get how many percent of like the test set does it improve on, right? So we keep building on and we keep like using the best models and we keep varying around to like get the best results that we can. And it would hit like a certain percent, right? And no matter what we did, the amount of AI research that we did, it wouldn't get past that. A new model comes out like a few months later. We just swap out like one line of code, right? Literally like switch from Grok 3 to Grok 4 or like Sonnet 4 to Sonnet 4.5. Half those problems just disappear.
Wow.
And so I was just like, wow, all the blood, sweat, and tears that we put in, one day, one variable, and it's just gone. And it's like this progress just doesn't stop. So it's quite exciting and humbling as well as to just how quick the progress of AI can be. And so I'm just very excited. Yeah. I think I'm not sure if you want me to I'm happy to answer the last question, which is will we still need humans in a world of AI in finance? I think 100% yes. I think finance is about decision making and humans, right? AI isn't about replacing accountants. It's about upgrading them, which I think resonates a lot with what Lance is saying, right? Like the future accountant is one that spends less time reconciling spreadsheets, right? Checking whether you copied the numbers correctly from like the invoice or not. And you spend more time actually advising clients, interpreting trends, and like making decisions, right? Like actually connecting with the human. Like think about it, right? Like 40 years ago, like Excel didn't eliminate accountants. Excel is just a tool. It just made you all faster, more analytical. AI is the same. AI is just a tool. AI will do the same thing. It will just free all of us to do more like judgment, strategy, and communication, and less of like, I mean, prior to Excel, I'm sure people just like drag and drop and like copy things into tables or like paper. So it's just a tool.
Well, I
And
think I can't
that's
remember who it
why,
was. I think it was Bill Jelen who said, when the spreadsheet was arrived 40 years ago, accountants were doing manual ledgers with calculators and paper, right? And everyone then started to say, "Oh, AI's going to remove the accountant." Sorry, Excel's going to remove the accountant. And what did Excel do? No, Excel created a whole range of new roles and tasks for people to do, including this concept of financial modeling. Financial modeling literally was not possible on paper. You couldn't change scenarios live. From VisiCalc, which was kind of the first with Dan Brinkland, right? He created it, and Excel obviously came a lot later. By the way, I wrote an article sent a couple of years ago. 40 years in financial modeling and spreadsheeting history. Although the article is now about 8 years old, but financial modeling actually started before Excel started. Of course, so if you ever want to look at that, a lot of this content is on our Knowledge Hub on our website. So if you ever want to look at it, but Andrew, let's hit the I guess throw it out there to everyone else. If you want to ask questions of Andrew, particularly around the topic, it resonates strongly with me. I am disappointed at tech and founders that come up with these sort of clickbait headlines and say accountants you're gone, or financial modelers you're gone, and just like we don't need humans. I think it's very dystopian. I think it's anti-human, and I think it's actually misleading. And and people are nervous. People are nervous. They're genuinely nervous, and I don't like that rhetoric. So any thoughts out there? Any questions anyone wants to ask to Andrew? No?
I think the funny part is all these founders are like, oh, it's gonna replace humans, and then you try their tools and then it's broken, and then you're like, oops, and then yeah, what's the irony there? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think the shortcut found on Nico comes to mind when I saw some of that stuff, and even having to pay to use their tool, I thought was pretty shocking. And of course, near parity, well, no, they've rebuilt the spreadsheet and online because it's easier. What are some of the challenges, I guess, Andrew, in building TabAI? Do you see that where AI really struggles? I mean, obviously, as the AI models, the LLMs get better and better and better. But there's always going to be that element it's not going to work. What do you see that is some of the challenges?
Context length. There's a concept in AI called context rot. So when your conversation with an AI gets very long, it somehow forgets about like all the other details in the middle. And I think that's one of the very hard AI research challenges, which is when your sheet is huge, right? Your general ledger is like 1,000 rows, like a few million rows or something. Okay, maybe it doesn't get that far because then you'll be using Alteryx. Yeah, it's just trying to help how to solve this where you can't just pass the whole thing into the context. That's why if you actually just copy paste into ChatGPT, it's gonna fail. Like it's gonna make a lot of mistakes. So that's something that we're solving, like how to integrate both just passing those data into AI, but also just giving AI. The funny thing is giving AI another tool, which is a new feature that we are building, giving AI Python. So AI can now take your general ledger and then go into Python and then like do the categorization and classification there and then just bring the data back into Excel. And all those happens like behind the scene. And these are like very fun innovation to work on. It's like giving AI tools so that they can do better as well. Yeah.
We've got a question from the audience. Where do you see AI governance moving into?
I presume AI governance as in data and like privacy and all these things, is it? Or how would you?
Varish, do you want to come off mute and ask the question?
Thanks, Lance. Really excited to try TabAI, Andrew. My question is both within the data context, because obviously now as accountants, we're constantly thinking about data, but more specifically within the data quality context. I think one thing you just mentioned, which I never even thought of, was that the length of the prompts and the length of the conversation can materially alter the results we get later down the chain. That automatically triggers in me a fear that I'll need to strengthen my governance in AI. What exactly are your thoughts on AI governance specifically within our context as accountants?
Sorry, I still don't follow. So when your conversation length gets long, how does that affect governance?
Oh, sorry. I should probably clarify. Like, where do you see AI governance moving into as these models get better and better?
So like all your data privacy and everything, is it?
Yep.
Got it. I think even today, right? I think when it comes to like accountants, the one offering that we do is like on-prem and like just air gap. And yesterday I just talked to like a founder of like another startup where you can actually host like all these LLMs like locally. So what he does as a service is he would ship you a Mac Studio and then he would just run the LLM inside that Mac on like the GPU. And he would just pull out the internet cable, right? And show you that the LLM still runs. So there's actually a lot of solutions to like make sure that the AI governance is like there, as in data privacy and everything is solved. So yeah.
And you've got SOC 2 compliance and military grade encryption, Andrew, on yours. So otherwise, I wouldn't be using your tool. So when you passing the data between Excel, firstly, you're not using it for learning on the other side. You're just passing it and bringing it back. That's entirely encrypted, and obviously you've got certificates and validation on all of that. So it's a great question, and I think for me, data governance is important, is critical, but I don't think people have worked it out yet. What exactly does it mean? And I think it's important to actually understand elements of that. I think that's one benefit, I guess, to using Copilot because it's in the Microsoft world. But can we guarantee that Copilot's not being trained in the back end? I don't know. I mean, and with Google for sure, you've got to be probably a bit more wary of. But I think we don't know, or we don't actually know the architecture and the data flows. If it's in Excel, we know that we can control it. So I think that's important. So there's a question from Kapil. Would like to understand how would AI integration happen with ERP systems such as SAP in the future? Look, I think we can't talk for SAP. I certainly can't talk for any of those. I mean, I think they're all going to be hooking up to these LLMs, and if they haven't already, and releasing them. You know, I guess the challenge with all of that is, okay, back to the data governance. Where is the LLM? Where's it stored? Is the foundations on which you're building that that AI on a really good solid general ledger? If you've got good chart of account structures, can it use that? Or it comes down to the data and the foundations as well. Kapil, maybe you want to join. We've got a webinar coming up soon around some of those foundations on AI, which might answer some of those questions. But I don't know, Andrew, what are your thoughts on ERPs?
Yeah, it's all connections. So I see a lot of the workflows is that what I've heard other users of ours say is that these software like NetSuite and like QBO and everything actually have terrible UI UX. And that's why a lot of times they just download as a CSV and go back to Excel. So what we're building, and actually I think we're finishing building and we're going to launch it next week, is that we're already connected to like Xero and QBO. But after that, we can easily connect to like NetSuite and all these things as well, so that you no longer have to do all this manual work of like going through a terrible dashboard, a terrible interface, right? You can just like go into TabAI and say, hey, pull my data from like Xero, pull my data from like NetSuite, and then just like help me run analysis directly. And SAP as well. And actually one of our person in the team actually previously worked as an SAP consultant, so he can relate a lot with like the pain point here.
I'm pretty sure the most heavily used function in SAP is download to Excel. So I think, again, it comes back to, where people are going to be working. They're going to be working in Excel off the ERP because of the tables and structures. Well, thanks, Andrew. I'm just looking at time. I want to spend half an hour, towards the back end on some practical stuff, which I think is important. So the training we're going to give you, we're going to go through a SAS model, three-way model with a cap table, integrated scenario management, all of that. Modern Excel with management reporting, again, not today, but in the next coming up sessions. Accounting system integration approach. So Andrew mentioned one. We've also got Excel Cloud as well. Power BI development. How do you build your first Power BI report as well? We're going to cover that. And then AR tools and use cases and application for finance. So each of these, you're going to get some content, you're going to get some data, some questions, and then you can work through those. So Excel tech has been around for a long time, and I've been a huge user of Excel add-ins. And this is before AI even started. So Excel Cloud is ours. We built it. It's an integration to Xero. It's pushing and pulling. It's quite deterministic, and it's got pre-built templates and models and that. And we'll show a little bit of that. Excel Analyzer is an auditing tool. We're actually going to have the founder, Martin, as well join. This is where you want to, and there's lots of other add-ins that do audit detection and error detection and formula construction and validation. This is all part of the hygiene. How do you know a spreadsheet is really good? Well, you run a tool like Excel Analyzer, and it gives you a full report on how many hard-coded numbers, how many external links, how many tables, what's the VBA, all these sort of things are important. The other thing is the MS App Store, Excel Labs, the advanced formula environment, where you can start to use other people's lambdas. Craig Hatmaker's got 5G lambdas, which you can download and use. And these are sharing and reusing formulas. So this is why Excel knowledge and Excel fluency is important, because there's other things outside just AI. And then I've used the Get Jira data. So, Excel add-in, it just pulls data out of Jira, so I can look at tickets for Excel Cloud. Different add-ins do different things that Excel out of the box just doesn't do, right? That's important. So if you've never used an add-in in your life and you've only ever used Excel natively, then there's a whole lot of other things that you can do that you just simply either can't do or just takes a lot of time. These are the things that you need to think about around your tech stack as a finance professional before you even think AI. When you start to talk about AI, we built our own homegrown add-in, which allowed us to have AI functions. So Kerry, who I think has joined us, we built a lot of these calls, which effectively go either to ChatGPT, Claude, or Grok. And the problem with this is it's internal. We were doing it for testing purposes to try and work it out, but the security issue, right? We don't have the security layer that Andrew does have. Obviously, we're going to have TabAI, which I'm going to show shortly. But I've given a screenshot of my browser. So these are all my AI tools. TabAI, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, Grok, Claude. I started working a little bit with some AI video generation, obviously ChatGPT, OpenAI, and Discord for Midjourney. So again, different LLMs have different strengths. So we are going to cover these and how do you use some of these. Read AI as well is very useful for us in terms of meetings and documentation. So demo number one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a raw data file. I got all the registration from the session in a CSV from Zoom, and obviously not going to share everyone's details, but I'm going to share elements of that. And I want to work out, and as everyone knows, that effectively, here's the, can you see my screen, my Excel? Everyone, so just showing you my name, place, approved, city. So I don't have country here. So I've got a data gap. So I wanted to actually work out of all these people that are arriving, what's the organization, what are the questions, what is the main reason, and what learning and what knowledge do they want to get from these sessions. So I actually want some insight. So I've got all this data and I want to create this insight. So I started to do the task myself. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share the prompt. And I would say like this would be my human prompt. If people say, like, what are you trying to achieve? And I'll put it in the chat, right? So I want to understand out of this data, I want to get some insight. How do I structure the session? How do I make sure people get what they want? How many people are from Australia versus the other countries? And so what I started to do, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly open up TabAI, and I'm going to pop that into that prompt. I'm going to pop into the chat at the moment. But what I'm actually going to do here is I'm actually going to give TabAI specific determination around this table. So see how we've got at tier registrations, that's the table name. I'm going to say, okay, use that table. So I'm being very specific to TabAI, what it's doing, and I'm going to paste that prompt and I'm going to let it go, right? So that's going to run, and people can, you know, if you want to take a timer. While TabAI is doing that, let's look at my own approach, right? And I'm going to validate, and we're going to check what TabAI has done. You know, multitasking is great. So you can see on the right-hand side, it's working away. So the first thing that I would do is I would sort by the cities, and I want to try and find it. So I'm just using a dynamic array and a structured reference for that. So there's 94. That's all good. And then, you know, just getting a short list of that. Now, I don't know if anyone's used data types. So under data, you've got geography. So what I did is I copied and pasted, okay, because data types doesn't work in formulas. So I copied this list, right? So I went Control-C and I went Alt-H-V-V, so I paste, right? And then what I did is I went to data and I said, okay, I want that as geographies. And so what that did is using the data types in Excel, I now gave me this city, right? But now look at this, Gilbert. So Gilbert, there's a challenge. Why? Because there's different Gilberts around the world. So now I've got to clean that. So now I'm going to select that, and you'll see here that that suddenly became United States. This formula as well, I'm using a dynamic array, and I'm able to ask for the country or region. And then I say, okay, well, now I'm going to use my unique, you know, which again, if you're not using dynamic arrays, you know, really, really important to start getting more efficient in our, not using pivot tables, you know, using dynamic arrays to get data out of information. Then I'm just going to do my COUNTIF, and then I'm going to have a percentage of total. There's data issues, right? So Columbus, Ohio has got an issue. Delhi's got an issue. Don't know why. So there's 4 issues out of that. So, you know, there's some data challenges in here. But there's 40 people from Australia, there's 15 from Sri Lanka, so it's 42.6%. Now I'm going to use these to compare to what TabAI comes out at to see whether TabAI is correct or how accurate it is. And then, you know, now I want to look at unique cities and, you know, city counts. But let's just go back to that prompt again, right? So what does that prompt say? Well, I actually want to get insight on a summary of all that information. Now, this took me from scratch to build this about 20 to 30 minutes because I had to go and research all of this. I actually asked Alex and my team, hey, how would you do this? I want to get country. It's not that easy, right? It's not that easy. And so and now if I wanted to summarize, let's say I wanted to summarize, what's the main reason for people coming? I've got to now categorize 94 individual answers. So I don't know, please put on the chat, how long do you think it would take you to summarize and get everything on it, right? As per my human prompt, if I gave you that prompt, have a guess how long it might take a human to give me all that analysis. And by the way, while I've been talking, it's been beavering away and continuing, and it's still continuing there. So I'll come back to all of that. and it's building validation and checks as we go. So any thoughts, any bids of how long it would take you to analyze all of the feedback, see what the analysis is? 3 hours, not bad. So you're saying 3 hours, including looking at every single response, where you say, okay, what's the main reason and what would you like to learn? Categorizing that, grouping them in as well. So you have to read every single 94 entrants. You've got to read every single one. You've got to categorize each one. A couple of hours, easily a full working day. Thank you. I honestly, and it depends on your skills, right? I'd say it's somewhere between 3 to 5 hours, right? Is what I would say it would take you to do this manually, to the level of detail that you actually want to understand it. And if anyone could do that faster, that's awesome. But I think given the data challenges, how do you summarize information that is not well structured into that summary? So, what's the cost of AI? So if it takes us, 1.5 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, and this is our annual salary, the cost of this analysis is somewhere between $36 to do that analysis. If you do it in 1.5 hours, which I don't think you can, to be honest. To do it in 1.5 hours is pushing it. But if that's your annual salary, depending on your experience, you're somewhere between $36 and $1,000, right? If you're taking a whole day or 8 hours. I've run some tests before, and effectively it costs $7, $10, and $8, and we're going to see how all that works. It all comes down to tokens, and I'll talk a little bit about that. How do you measure cost and all those sort of things? And something that Andrew and I have gone back and forth on many occasions. So here's all the information around the different participants. Here's some validation checks, and then there's some presentation. It's still going now, so it's listing all of that information. It's giving me the breakdown of all the steps. I've got my chat history as well, and I'm still going to let it go. You can see there's it's showing I can stop it if I want to, but I don't want to. I want to actually let it finish its work. But because I think we've got some numbers here around percentages of Australia. So we've got here the count for Australia. So that's already done. So let's go and check the accuracy of the human against that. So we've got 40 as well. So this is a percentage. I'm just going to go equals participant summary. So what this has the ability to do is 40 divided by 94. So I can work at the same time. It doesn't lock up my Excel. TabAI can work alongside me. Most other VBA processes or Power Query, you kind of have to let it go, and then you can't really interact with it. But you can. You obviously got to be careful if you move and change rows, and it's going to mess up the formatting. But you can work on another sheet, no problem. And then we've got Sri Lanka. So I'm going to go equals, go to my validation and checks. So we've got Sri Lanka is 15 divided by 94, and it's 100%, right? So straight away I can say, okay, it's actually done a pretty good job. When I first did this, it was about 98%, and didn't get it quite right. But I've been doing this now a number of times, and obviously the process, I've got better at giving it more context, being more specific. And I've asked it, if you notice on the prompt, to actually validate the errors and make sure that it's making sure that it's got no errors, and it has all that information. So now it's gone and it's matched and passed and completed. And so it's also checked for data completeness and accuracy, right? It's done all of this, right? So now I can ask it, and I can start to get more comfortable with this process around, is the data accurate? Does it have the right information? And obviously the reason themes and the learning goals, right? Those are the things that it's tried to analyze. Now, obviously it's pulled out, we've only got 94 people, but there's 124 reasons, right? Because some people might have multiple reasons why they're doing things. And so, when someone says, oh, it's going to take 1 to 2 hours, I'd be shocked. I mean, I'd love to see that, because I think it takes you a lot longer to actually read each one and pull and categorize, and see overlapped expected. So it is expecting an overlap, and that's okay, and it can deal with that. And now it's giving me a presentation. It's still going, and it's so 3 sheets created. These are the validation and checks, the presentation, and it's summarizing all of those. So critical must-dos, right? So I don't know about everyone else. The formatting is not perfect. So, you see I had to sort of group. I did Control A and just double click. But this is the insight that I've got, right? Show real examples, not theory, right? That's why I said I wanted to spend time doing actual practical. And I ran this before and I thought, I've got to spend a decent amount of time actually showing how this stuff works. Address the hype versus reality gap. I think we've done that. So that's a tick. Provide actionable takeaways, which we'll do in a sec. Haven't done that one yet. Balance technical depth, right? So it's a complex topic. We've got to balance all of those and make it interactive. So I've asked you questions, to really deal with that. AI implementation and tools, 17 participant, financial modeling, 11, Power BI analysis is 10 people, Excel and automation, 7, practical application is 8, and so it even starts to give me engagement strategies of how to deliver it. Don't miss out. Filtering challenge, CFO perspective, implementation concerns, giving me a breakdown of what, like it's pretty good, right? I have to say it's pretty good in terms of what it's done and given me insight. And of course, it's somewhere else, that chat on the side. Any questions, thoughts when I show you all of that? Okay, use case number 2. So that's just the first one, which again, I think is just, really, really impressive in terms of the ability to get that information fast. The next one I'm going to do is a full ETL process. So now we're talking about data out of zero into a model and then into Power BI. I'm going to leave it. So we're going to jump into Excel Cloud. We're going to go to a 3A model. We're going to click a workbook. This is just a very smart workbook template, and it's connected to Xero. And I'm going to click demo, pulling the data. So there's nothing in this workbook. So now we're running the combination of VBA and Power Query. Now this is locked. Now, yes, there's automation, but I cannot interact with my Excel at the moment. So it's locked because it's, that's just the nature of the technology that we've got when we're using kind of, engineering tools like this. So it's pulling data. There's going to be information in each of these in terms of the P&L, the balance sheet, the cash flow, and the like. And now that's done. Whilst it's still pretty, I should have shown you that there's a blank workbook, but you can trust me. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll go back and I'll click this again. Let me just save this as a file because I need to save this in my desktop, browse, desktop, and I'm going to call this -tab B2, right? And if we go back to opening this workbook, right, you see here there's no data in any of these sheets, and the dashboards are all blank. So once I've done that and I've got all that information, again, we'll get time to go through the model in more detail with dashboards. There's a combo dashboard, there's a management report, there's scenario management, there's a scenario manager, and I can change scenarios and sources and uses, and then my annual financials, right? Income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, and yes, my balance sheet balances, right? AI can't do that at the moment, right? That's important. But now I want to display that in Power BI. Why do I want to do it in Power BI? Because I don't want to share my file to a whole bunch of people. I want to give them some insight. Here's my Power BI. It's completely empty right now. What we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of dynamic arrays and lambdas. So we have our Power BI export. We have our own native lambda, which is PBR generates an income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, and the schemas and the templates for the P&L. I'm actually going to close this workbook because for Power BI to read it, the file needs to be closed. I'm going to go get data, and actually we've got data source settings. I'm going to select this. I'm going to change the source. I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go to my desktop and last modified TabAI V2, open, okay, close, and refresh. All right, so we're going to take you through this journey of how would you build something not as sophisticated as this, but now I've got all of that published. So we have our income statement, our balance sheet, income statement on different bases, our balance sheet, on different bases as well, and our cash flow as well. So fall through our modeling into Power BI, and now I can publish it. I can look at FY23 August. I can look at June. I can look at a whole bunch of stuff. So I think the data elements of this is quite important. So there you have it. I mean, that was what, 10, 15 minutes in terms of the end-to-end flow. We're going to take you through on that journey as part of this process, understanding modeling, understanding dynamic arrays. And a lot of the stuff has also been done in the past, and we've got pre-recording and other workshops, which effectively you've got. So TabAI in particular, I want to talk a little bit about that, where I've started to use it practically as a fractional CFO with clients, writing some basic commentary, setting up structures quickly. I get a client workbook and I want to put a validation check. I want to do a cover sheet with hyperlinks. Funny enough, it doesn't do hyperlinks. It actually tells you how to do a hyperlink, but actually can't put in a hyperlink. So Andrew, that's something which I forgot to mention to you. But variance analysis and checking, model requirements and completion check. So we actually had a model and we had requirements. I want to actually check, does this model meet those requirements? And that's important. Removing mundane tasks, point-to-point repetition across formulas and sheets. So let's say on one sheet, and not all sheets are structured in the same way because people are not professional financial modelers, everyone. And I want to do something with one sheet, but I want to replicate that process. So I can't group all the sheets together because it's not in the same rows and columns. I can ask TabAI to do something like that, and I have, and it does that really well. Benchmarking external data, multitasking in Excel. That's important. As you saw, when I pulled down the data, VBA locks the workbook, Power Query where it's running, I can't really use it. In fact, Power Query in itself, I'm in the Power Query editor, I can't even touch Excel, right? It locks it out. So it's quite restrictive in that way. Good, because I'm dealing with the data model and dealing with transformation, but quick in summary, messy and broken data into clean. You saw when I started to do that, there was all that broken data, there was files, there was information that was missing. And that is really, really a good way to get that. So what I'd say for me, not for full model builds or heavy ETLs and tables. So again, it's understanding the context of where these tools are useful and where you can use it. For now, not in full model builds. So when everyone's going on LinkedIn saying, oh, you build full model builds with AI and agent mode, no, do not risk your reputation on an AI built model that you haven't checked. And if you don't have the foundations of understanding how a three-way model works, if you want a qualification, the FMI, AFM, we're an approved trainer. It's definitely the place to go if you want to get qualified in building robust three-way models. Next steps. There's a survey in the end. Andrew, I'm still talking. If you can just pop in the link in the chat to the survey so people can answer. We've got 5 minutes left. Share your thoughts, experiences publicly. All of this is obviously recorded, and we're going to share that. There's obviously a knowledge hub in our website, and there's contents and models on Eloquence. And then get ready, right? Get ready. Next sessions, there's a massive amount of opportunity. We're going to give you example workbooks and data, so you can start practicing. And please have a go at TabAI. All these sessions are free. They're free because ultimately I think the message needs to get out to people like, don't be afraid, but get started. Understand what you need to do. If you need more help, we can do a lunch and learn with your finance or accounting teams. We can do workshops and programs to co-develop solutions. So if you're wanting, a really clunky process, you want to get on the journey and start small, I'd recommend that. You don't have to have this massive investment in AI. You've got TabAI. You can go through all the security checks and balances, through with Andrew. And I guess, Andrew, if they want to deploy it locally, a local instance, that's possible as well. The important thing is also the data foundations and readiness. So if you want to understand how do you do this and what are the foundations you need, and you want to have a readiness assessment in terms of your data foundations, we do that. We do tech stack diagnostics and roadmap development. So these are people that have got big ERPs, lots of Excel workbooks, and they want to actually understand how do they get better use of the data, but also the technology to build that. And in limited cases, we do coaching and for leaders or for team members. So your resources, and by the way, you're going to get this PDF as well of all these slides. So don't worry about taking notes. The Knowledge Hub on our website, modelcitizen.com. I've got all links on each of these. We have a modeling shop. So a lot of the models that we've done, the workshops and training with recording are available on a modeling shop. We've got a lot of content on eloquence as well. We've got TabAI as well, which is the link. There's Excel Cloud. If you're trying to use, particularly with Xero, you've got lots of Excel files or Xero files and you want to pull that together. Excel Cloud is quite useful for pulling and pushing. And then the Future of Financial Modeling YouTube channel, which doesn't have a lot of love, doesn't have a lot of followers, but hopefully through this process it will. So please have a look at that YouTube channel. I'm going to post all these videos. It's not fair that everyone else doesn't get access to this. It is free, so we are going to be pushing some of that out. So stay connected, connect with me on LinkedIn, have a look at our website. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll throw it open with 2 minutes to spare. Whew. Take a breath now.
Sorry, just a thing as well. We host weekly workshops just to answer any questions about TabAI and run live demos. I put a link inside the chat if anyone of you still have any further questions for next year. But yeah, thanks, Lance. Like that demo was fabulous. That was like, wow.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for coming as well. And thanks for making a great tool. I think it's really an interesting evolution of where we can go. And I think it's really powerful. And I think people need to see it as an opportunity, take a growth mindset. And I think those that embrace it are going to do really, really well. I think those that are going to either sit on the fence or resist it, I think the wave is coming. And as your co-founder said, when the wave comes in, go surfing, right? So let's go surfing. Let's go and experience what AI has to have for us, and really leverage the technology, but leverage ourselves and develop ourselves, right? Because we have to change the way we work. We have to think about what are the new skills I've got to learn around communication. I need to be tech savvy. I need to actually understand what are tokens. How does AI get costed? If I'm going to go do an AI transformation program, how does this thing work? That's important, right? So we're going to go on that, and we're going to cover those in these sessions. But I think it's really useful to have those other skills, not just the technical skills, the human skills. Any other thoughts or questions from the audience? Please, respond to the survey. Love to hear your thoughts. Any other questions? Well, 1 minute to go. Have a great Friday, everyone. Hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. So next session, we're going to cover off on Excel and financial modeling. Not so much overview of the whole program, but just really focusing on the specifics of Excel and financial modeling. We're going to share you our financial modeling question, which you can go away. We're going to give you some data. And then go through an approach to how you would build it. We're going to give you some of the fundamental foundations in financial modeling, understanding modern Excel. If you're not using dynamic arrays on LAMBDAs, now's the time to start learning and developing those skills, because dynamic arrays gives you the structure and the automation. It's a new calculation engine, and is really, really a lot to leverage and learn, and what we're going to do. Thanks, Colin. That's very early for you, Colin, to wake up from South Africa. Thanks for joining. Happy for you to pop off on a chat, but you probably want to go back to bed unless you're in Perth. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, participants. And yeah, share, and looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you so much for joining us at the Finance Lab.